June of 2014, during Gay Pride Month, the United States Embassy flew the American flag, and underneath the American flag, they hoisted the Gay Pride flag. And for the last few years now, Tel Aviv has been voted the #1 gay city in the world amongst the gay community themselves. They have voted Tel Aviv as the #1 place in the world. Not San Francisco, not New York, but Tel Aviv.
Oh my beast, welcome to the Middle East. Tel Aviv, ya habibi, Tel Aviv, תסתכל כמה לירדים מסביב.
With a gay scene that competes with all gay capitals around the globe, there's a lot to take in. The history, the geometry, the religious cultures, mixed with the spectacular beaches, architecture, old and new, friendly people, and a really good gay scene. Israel is a Jewish state. However, there are territories within it that are mainly occupied by the Arabs, called Palestine. These are the Gaza Strip, West Bank and Golan, and have been fenced off from the rest of the country.
Tel Aviv is a big city with lots of interesting things to see and do. The best way to do this is by the network of bike hire stations across the city. Here's some of the top things to do.
Jaffa, the oldest part of Tel Aviv. The port there is said to be 4,000 years old. Rothschild Boulevard and Schenken Street. Trendy shopping, coffee shops and milling around checking out the sights, people, entertainment and architecture. These areas of Tel Aviv also have many gay establishments.
This is Rothschild Boulevard, one of the best streets here in Tel Aviv. Just make sure you keep on your right hand side.
Gordon Beach and Jerusalem Beach. You'll be meeting gays on most of the beaches, but the official gay beach is located opposite the Hilton Hotel under the cliffs of Independence Park, a popular cruise.
It took about 1.5 hours to drive to Jerusalem. To see the ancient city with all its history, sights and attractions was amazing. First, we stopped on a hill overlooking the city, taking in the skyline that was dominated by the massive gold dome of Temple Mount. Other things that were interesting to see were the Wailing Wall, Mount of Olives, Tower of David Museum, the different religious quarters, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
We spent a good half day looking around the city, although we could have stayed longer. It was time to continue on to the Dead Sea. This drive was less than an hour through the desert, where you descend to 423 meters below the sea level, the planet's lowest land elevation.
אני רואה חרא מחוץ לבית שלי, יריקות, פסיכופטים, אנשים שרק מחפשים איך לרצוח אותי בעיניים שלהם, אבל אף אחד לא מאמין לנו. אנחנו גזענים כדי לרצות לשמור על החיים שלנו ועל השפיות שלנו. אז אני גאה בלהיות גזענית, אם אני גזענית בשביל לשמור על החיים שלי, אז אני גאה.
United Arab Emirates newspaper The National reports that health officials in Israel are subjecting many female Ethiopian immigrants to a controversial long-term birth control drug in what Israeli women's groups allege is a racist policy to reduce the number of black babies. Use of the contraceptive Depo-Provera by Israeli doctors has risen threefold over the past few years. Figures show that 57% of Depo-Provera users in Israel are Ethiopian, even though the community accounts for less than 2% of the total population. In Israel, Ethiopians are reported to face widespread discrimination in jobs, housing, and education, and it recently emerged that their blood donations were routinely discarded. The widespread use of Depo-Provera in the Ethiopian community was discovered in 2008 when Rachel Mangoli, who runs a daycare center for Ethiopian children in Israel, observed that she had received only one new child in the previous 3 years. She approached a local health clinic serving the 55 Ethiopian families in Bnei Brak and was told by the clinic manager that they had been instructed to administer Depo-Provera injections to the women of childbearing age, though he refused to say who had issued the order. The contraceptive's reputation has been scandalized by its association with South Africa, where the apartheid government had used it, often coercively, to limit the fertility of black women. Hedva Eyal, the author of the report by Israeli feminist organization Woman to Woman, said, quote, "This is about reducing the number of births in a community that is black and mostly poor. The unspoken policy is that only children who are white and Ashkenazi are wanted in Israel." The answers we received from officials demonstrated overt racism. They suggested that Ethiopian women should be treated not as individuals, but as a collective group whose reproduction...
Ethiopians are protesting against what they call racism and discrimination in Israeli society. Mayor, you have your face painted. A lot of people here do. What is the message?
The message is it's not a matter it's black or white. We are a person. This is the message.
The crowd here is going to proceed to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's house, and after that to the center of Jerusalem, to Zion Square. The protests will go on for a number of hours. The question is whether tomorrow lawmakers here will really take this protest seriously, and perhaps there will be some change. Jordana Miller, JN1, Jerusalem.
The short video from a security camera in Holon, a suburb of Tel Aviv, has swept Israel and sparked waves of angry protests against police. At the center of the video is Corporal Demas Fkade, the 21-year-old Ethiopian soldier you see in uniform. He says he was trying to reach his house just a block away when police stopped him from crossing the street. There's no sound on the tape, so it's not clear what either party said, but Fkade says he was asking for permission to cross when the police officer grabbed his bike. Fkade says he urged him not to use force, but by then, another officer joined. You can see Fkade pushed to the ground and held down. There's no way to explain the feeling. Only God and I know how I felt, he says. First of all, it's degrading because you're a soldier who is serving the country. You're giving all of yourself, and it's degrading. Moments later, Fkade gets to his feet. He's seen picking up a rock. He eventually puts it down, and the situation appears to quiet down. Israeli authorities say both officers have been dismissed. The incident is still under investigation. The video set off protests across Israel from the Ethiopian Jewish community. Nearly 1,000 demonstrators gathered in Jerusalem on Thursday night, followed by hundreds more on Sunday in Tel Aviv. Protesters blocked off major streets in Tel Aviv, snarling traffic during rush hour. Still, it remained peaceful. But when the protests moved to Rabin Square in central Tel Aviv, clashes erupted. Protesters smashed shop windows and damaged police cars. Police fired tear gas and used water cannons to disperse the crowd, as what was a peaceful afternoon became a violent night. Authorities and Ethiopian leaders urged restraint, but it was well past midnight when the final protesters left Rabin Square. I am for the demonstrations, but I'm against violence, Fkade says. Whether it's on policemen or civilians, nobody should get hurt. It's a pity. But I'm for the demonstrations. I'm completely for them. The protests were not just about the video, but about what Ethiopians see as years of discrimination at the hands of police and authorities. The video was the tipping point.
Tel Aviv, like all modern cities around the world, a collection of the best and worst of humanity. Beautiful beaches, renowned restaurants, the arts and universities. But walk any street in Tel Aviv, and you are confronted with another thriving industry here. Sex. Sidewalks freshly littered with business cards advertising for prostitutes. Similar flyers left on the windshields of cars. Free magazines also advertising prostitutes, available outside many stores. Sex shops and clubs on every major thoroughfare. Prostitution is legal here in Israel, although lawmakers are currently debating whether to criminalize the use of paid sexual services. Tel Aviv is also home to a growing gay and lesbian community, with an annual parade and even its own tourism industry, all with the blessing and encouragement of Tel Aviv's mayor. But those are the visible signs. Even more disturbing are those unseen by the public. This is Neve Sha'anan, the neighborhood near Tel Aviv's old central bus station, the center of life for foreign workers who come to Israel, and a haven now for Tel Aviv's underworld of mafia, drugs, and human trafficking.
This is the worst in every area in Israel.
In 2001, a U.S. State Department report ranked Israel third worst in the world for human trafficking. Thousands of women, mostly from Eastern Europe, sold like animals into a world of forced prostitution here in the Holy Land.
I deal with really the hardcore heroin addicts and crystal meth addicts, girls that are using 2,000-3,000 shekels a day in drugs. They're sleeping with 20-30 men a day, and they're still on the streets.
Today, after pressure from abroad, the situation is improving, but sexual slavery remains a persistent reality. And with less women being brought from other countries, traffickers are now turning to Israelis, luring girls as young as 12 years old into a world of drug addiction and eventually forced prostitution to pay off those drug debts.
The situation in Israel, it's like that. Most of the teenagers in our country, they're very far from God. They even don't think about God and about to walk in the truth. Most of the teenagers in Israel, they think about parties, about how to do fun and things like that. And all these things excluded a lot of alcohol, have a lot of drugs parties. It's dangerous, it's very dangerous.
Playboy magazine has launched its first Hebrew edition, so Israelis can now enjoy it for, of course, the articles. IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan and cameraman Barry Levinson teamed up to bring you this report.
Shvanfana, that's the Hebrew word for Playboy bunny. There were bunnies galore at the launch of the iconic magazine's first Hebrew edition in Tel Aviv this weekend. Erotica has always been available in Israel, but now, Playboy Israel is giving a chance for local models and writers to show their talent in photos peppered between articles about politics, cars, gadgets, and fashion. Playmate Marine Teremetis is proud to be the centerfold.
I'm just happy and proud to be a part of it. I'm very privileged to be the first Israeli Playmates. I think we made history in making that happen, and congratulations to Playboy Israel.
In keeping with its intellectually hefty articles, this edition has an interview with Avi Dichter, an outgoing Home Front minister and former head of the Shin Bet.